So this is Monday and we're going over what we have to do this week. There's no school on Friday, so no book clubs on Friday. In writing or in language arts this week, we're done with our informational book. So we're back to doing full Florida Virtual. So you're doing all of the things in the lessons on Florida Virtual. You're not skipping parts. And this lesson this week, I think it's 10.02, is where you need to really pay attention, because this is where they present the articles that you're going to use to write about, and they ask you to research another topic, and then they tell you what your prompt is for what you'll be writing about for the next 3 weeks. So you really need to pay attention to what that is. They're going to have you write about how animals change the environment. So you heard Professor Rolfe last week talking about invasive species and the way they change the environment. You're going to read a story about ants and another story, and you're going to use those as research. And then they ask you to get one more source, which means you get to pick kind of your third topic. And then they're going to have you write a 5-paragraph essay where you basically say, animals change the environment, and here are like 3 animals and the way they change the environment. Ants, whatever, and whatever. I gave you a list of ideas in the weekly pacing guide, so you can ask me about that if you have any questions. But please do your reading lesson carefully, because if you miss what the assignment is, then you're going to be confused the next couple of weeks. And this is where all the resources are. So I had a lot of people last month who never found, or I guess it was in science, didn't find that rock video. Well, the resources are right there, you guys. And if you ever can't find a resource, you can click on the top on that little, it's like a little file cabinet, and it has all the resources in there for the mod. So make sure you're paying attention as you go through that lesson. Also, I noticed that a bunch of kids had problems changing fractions from proper to improper. So I brought some fun things to cut up for us to practice that a little bit. So you guys did really well when you were doing fractions that were part of one thing. But what about when you have more than one thing and you cut it up? So here we have 3 cakes. And let's say we cut our cakes in half. Okay, so what you're looking at right here is half of a cake, right? You'll notice that the numerator is smaller than the denominator. That's because it's less than a whole cake. It's just one piece out of 2, right? But what happens when I have 2 of them? Well, I have 1/2 and 1/2, which is how many halves? Go ahead and say it. 2 halves, right? So if I were going to write that number, I would write it like this, 2 halves. And the numbers would be the same. Whenever the numerator and the denominator are the same, what's it equal to?
1 whole.
1 whole. It can be 1001 over 1001. It's still 1 whole, because basically you're saying this is the parts I have divided by the whole number of parts. This little line kind of means divided by. So I have 1 cake divided into 2 parts, and each part is 1 part out of 2. But I cut a lot more than 1 cake. So if I keep labeling these 1/2 and 1/2 and 1/2, okay. Now how many halves do I have? Well, let's count. Count with me. 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves. If I write that number now, so you see that I have 5 halves in my hand. 5 halves. Or I could just tell you that's 5 divided into 2, right? So I've taken and I've got 5 pieces, and they're all divided into halves. Well, if I want to know what that really is, I'd have to stick those halves back together again. I seem to have 1 whole here, another whole here, and a half. So 5 halves is really 2 1/2. Now, can I figure that out without having to put together pieces of paper? Yep, because all I have to remember is that if I divide the top number by the bottom number, I'm going to have my answer. So 5 divided by 2. Well, 2 will go into 5 how many times? 2 times. 2 times 2 is, and I have how many left over? 1 left over. So 2 halves or 2 wholes is 2 halves and 2 halves, or 4 halves. Does that make sense? So 2 halves is 1 plus 2 halves is another, and that equals 4 halves. But I have 5 halves because so there's 1 left over. We call these proper and improper fractions. They're proper when they're written with the whole numbers and the half number or the part numbers. They're improper when they're written like this. And a lot of you had problems changing these into these. But really, you just have to think about it as asking yourself, well, how many halves makes 1 whole? 2. Well, that's going to be 2 halves plus 2 halves, and that equals 4 halves. Now I have 5 halves, so there's 1 more half left over. That'll work with thirds too, or fourths. So let's say I take and cut up these 3 circles into 4 pieces. How many pieces am I going to have? If I wanted to take 3 wholes and rename them as quarters, how many quarters would I have? Anybody know? What's 3 times 4? There we go. Elias got it. It's 12, right? So the first one becomes 4. The second one becomes 4. 4 and 4 makes 8. The third one becomes 4. And I've got 12 pieces here. I have 12 fourths. Well, I don't really feel like trying to piece all those pieces together again. That's just too messy. So I'm just going to divide. 12 divided by 4 equals, show me, 3. I can also just kind of ask myself, 4 times what equals 12? Well, 4 times 3. If it was 13 fourths, though, then it would be 3, and I'd have 1 fourth left over. If that was confusing to you, if you still don't get how to change these, you're welcome to come back and talk to me. I'm always on here until 11 o'clock on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I really appreciate it if you come and ask me questions here during those times versus sending me a question late at night or something, because I can't answer it late at night. But I'd love you to come on and talk to me about that. So I saw a lot of problems with trading between proper and improper fractions. I also saw some struggles with rounding to the nearest half. I do think rounding to the nearest half can be a little bit tricky, because when you're rounding with other numbers, it's kind of easier to see where the middle is. But when you're rounding to the nearest half, let's say you have, oh gosh, in eighths, half of an eighth is 4/8, right? Let's say you have 6/8 and you want to round it to the nearest half, right? It's a little bit tricky, because what you basically have to ask yourself is, well, 6/8 is either 1 whole, or it's, since it's past 4/8, it's 1/2. But what's in the middle? Well, half of eighths is 4/8, right? And all of it of eighths is 8/8. What's between 4 and 8? Anybody?
6.
6. So 6/8 is right in the middle. Which way does the roller coaster go when it's right in the middle?
It goes down.
It goes down this way, right? To the forward, so you round up. So you know how we always said in order to round up, it had to be 5 or more? But in fractions, that doesn't work, because half of a half is not necessarily a 5. So that can make rounding a little bit trickier with fractions, because you have to think about what you're rounding to, and then you have to ask yourself, what's between 1/2 and 1? Well, with eighths, it's going to be 6/8. That's tricky, right? So if you're having a hard time with rounding in halves, it's because it's a little bit harder. It really is. And you just have to think about that roller coaster and try to find the middle. So any questions about that? It's a little bit tricky. All right. That was all that I wanted to clarify. Otherwise, you guys did a really nice job last week. We're kind of up to full force Florida Virtual this week. But remember, I told you we were going to have a break soon. So the first week, I think, of May, we'll have a nice break week where you get to do a special project. So thank you for your hard work on your informational books. Go ahead and work on that the language arts lesson this week. We are also switching back to social studies this week, and we're doing a unit on government. So you'll see that on the assignments. We are not doing science, but if your parents want you to continue, I've told you what unit you can work on there. And I would love to see a show of hands of who are planning to come tomorrow. 1, 2, so not so many. It won't be too crowded. 3, 4. Okay, interesting. All right, and we're down to 13. We had 30 kids this morning. We're down to 13 now, so we're losing people for whatever reason. All right, at the end of class today, I was gonna work with Lulu. Can you still stay, sweetie, or can you hear me or talk? Lulu, are you there? Uh-oh, I don't know if she can talk. She has problems with her microphone. Oh, she says okay, but can you talk? Is your mic working? All right, and then the other two people I was gonna work on with a little bit are Vi and Alma. I see Alma's still here. Is Vi still here? I don't see Vi. He's not still here. Alma, how are you feeling about that? Did that make sense, that math, or was it too fast?
I got most of it. Yeah.
You want to look back at that one that I told you to look back at and then come back in if you have any issues with it? So it's 10.02.
Okay.
No, it's 10.05, number madness. Okay, take another look at that, and if it doesn't make sense, come back in. Okay. Okay. Everybody else, let's see. Oh, Zong. Hey, Zong, are you still here? Or is he gone? We lost so many people today. It's crazy. Okay, Zong's gone. Zong invited everybody, anybody who wants to. Zong won a free game with me, and he wanted to play Scriblio with his friends. So he likes me okay, but he'd rather play with you guys. So if anybody wants to come in and play Scriblio with Zong at Games Club today at 12:30, that'd be great. Drama Club, you're going to realize that since we're doing a live thing tomorrow, we can't do Drama Club tomorrow afternoon. And so I thought we'd switch drama to tomorrow right after Zoom, if that's possible. You guys think that sounds okay? Or is that not going to work time-wise? If not, we'll do it Thursday afternoon, okay? Okay. It looks like Thursday afternoon is going to be the go. We're also going to do art club that day, but I'll just make 2 breakout rooms and I'll go between. Do I have a role in the play? I think I do.
Yeah, you do.
I'll let you guys practice. I'll get the art club started and then I'll come back in and do the play. Okay. That should be relaxing. Any other questions before we go to the rest of the day, the end of the day? No questions? Oh yeah, Elizabetta. Go ahead.
I am like ahead of math, so if like anyone needed help, I could just go to a breakout room and I can explain
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to work with Elizabetta, that would be great. And you can always send her an email too. That sounds great. Okay, so for breakout rooms today, I was going to give you a logic problem. Is it really late? Is that why everyone has escaped and left? What time is it?
It's only 10:12.
Oh, that's late though. That's over an hour. So that's why they're gone. Okay, so I don't think we have to do the logic problem today because we went kind of late today. So I'll let you guys go. If anybody needs to come in or has a question, just come back. All right? All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.